The Growers Market and the San Jose Produce Terminal from 1932 to 2001 on 7th and Taylor Streets in San Jose, California, by Ann Bjornstad. Made possible by the County of Santa Clara Historic Grant Program and the Italian American Heritage Foundation in San Jose, California. Produced and edited by David Perzinski.
Hello, my name is Ann Bjornstad, and I'm a member of the Italian American Heritage Foundation. Today I'm going to speak about the Growers Market, and in later years the San Jose Produce Terminal, which is depicted by this history board made possible by a grant from the Santa Clara County and the efforts of Ken Borelli, an IAHF committee, which included myself, Chuck Gulo, Tony Moriali, Sharon Moriali-Vignato, and Jan Marianelli Stonehofer, who actually traced their families to the Growers Market's beginnings. The board actually depicts a agricultural hub which was in our valley, which included many Italian Americans who were involved with the Growers Market, later known as the San Jose Produce Terminal, in the once Valley of Heart's Delight. What I would like to do now is just go through what some of these pictures represent about the market. You're going to see these two longer pictures, and they're actually pictures depicting the beginnings of the Growers Market. You can see here all of the farmers out here, and this shows the vibrancy of the market. The Growers Market was founded in 1932 on 7th and Taylor Streets on about 6 acres as a cooperative. It was a way of farmers to get their crops to distribution points around the Bay Area. The market employed hundreds of people: farmers, produce brokers, commission houses, produce peddlers, truckers, and lumpers, and was a vibrant agricultural center for over 60 years. It spanned the Great Depression, World War II through 1941 through 1945, the incarceration of Japanese American farmers who lost their farms. And then after this, it flourished from the 50s through the 70s to the early 80s, until the emergence of the supermarkets. And then there were other factors that caused its demise. The Growers Market, as I said, started in 1932, and then through the years it had some difficulties. In 1981, it was sold to the Marion brothers, who actually had a commission house, and then they changed the name. It was called the San Jose Produce Terminal, and finally sold in 2001. So that was kind of the history a little bit as far as dateline of the market. Then I'd like to go on and talk a little bit about these pictures in the corner here. And the Growers Market also included Beanie's Bar and Grill, and it was a restaurant, and it was located on the market property, and it was a melting pot of patrons. There were farmers, there were cannery workers, truck drivers, judges, policemen, lawyers, all walks of life, blue-collar, white-collar workers. It was first called Bimbo's, and it was called Bimbo's because that was the nickname of the first manager, Ottavio Paracci, who actually left and started a restaurant in San Francisco that I think is still going on today. It's called Bimbo's 365. After Mr. Paracci left, the Beanie family took over the restaurant, and then they called the restaurant Beanie's Bar and Grill. Edith Beanie Williams, which is a picture of her right here, was actually the matriarch of the family, and she started it with her husband, Mr. Beanie, and he passed on, and then she remarried, and this, I believe, is her second husband, Doug Williams. And they continued Beanie's for, I think, over 20 years, until 1978, they sold Beanie's to the Yoshihara family. And this is a picture of Dale and his wife Vicki right there in front of Beanie's. The Yoshihara family actually had bought Beanie's in 1978, had it until 1998. So they had it for another 20 years. And then it was finally sold, I believe, or it closed in 1998. It was actually before the market closed itself. So now we're going to go on and talk a little bit about the first actual board of directors of the Santa Clara County Fruit and Berry Growers Association, which is now what the first original board decided to call their board. I wanted to tell you an interesting note. This growers market was actually a cooperative. The farmers actually had to come up with $50 a share. And they didn't want any one farmer to have more than 10 shares. So they really wanted everybody to have an equal say in what was going on at the growers market. It's an amazing piece of history. If you think about, this is the Depression, and we're asking these farmers to come up with $50 a share. That's a lot of money if you think about it during the Depression. This was something that we are pretty proud of, and I wanted to mention their names because there are a lot of people in the valley who can still trace their ancestries to them. So first of all, we have Silvio Dimite, Archimede Antichi, Nazareno Tassi, and Joe Marinelli and Joe Monteferino. Jan Marinelli Stumhauser actually traces her family back to the original board, so we were lucky to have her on our committee. These are pictures that just show the vibrancy of the market. This was a picture that actually shows the Parachi's produce stand right here in the corner. And you can actually see the trucks coming into the market and so forth. And this is actually the parking lot behind the sheds. And as I said, it was 6 acres. So there was a lot going on here. And if you look, you can see all of the peddlers, the farmers selling their produce. So these are great depictions of what was going on back in the early times. A lot of this produce was not only sold here, but it was also put on trains, and it went all over the United States, all through the country. So this was actually when we were the Valley of Heart's Delight. So you can see how prosperous, agriculture was in this valley in those years. Next, I want to talk a little bit about this picture right here. And this is a picture of a map around the actual market. And if you look very closely, you'll be able to see these different plots of land, of farmland, of orchards. And one of the reasons I think why the market was where the market was because a lot of these farmers were on the north side of San Jose around this market. So it made it very convenient for them to sell their produce in this area. So we're lucky also to have this particular picture to show you. It's actually a picture around possibly 1949, 1950, and it's a picture that represents what the truck farmer was all about. My father was actually a truck farmer, and it's a picture of him and Tony Moriali, who actually was a produce broker, and my father is actually selling him beets off of his truck. And this is actually what the truck farmers did. They had stalls, which my dad had a permanent stall. It was like probably right in the middle there. And they would come there in the early morning, sell their produce off of their truck to produce brokers and other people that would come to the market, probably, restaurants in the morning, people that worked there, and sold their produce. So this was actually just a picture that represents what was actually going on in these stalls. They would sell the produce in the morning off of their truck, and then they would make their deliveries, usually to restaurants, small grocery stores, and that's what my dad did, and then he'd make his way home later, always for lunch. He was Italian, so, they like to eat. So anyway, so that's just a little picture that depicts what the truck farmers were doing. And that was my experience. My father was a truck farmer. The next thing I wanted to talk a little bit about was this picture in this corner. This is an interesting picture because it depicts all of the original farmers in 1932 that were part of this association way back when. At least this is what we believe that this article is talking about. This article was actually an advertisement for the San Jose Farmers Market. The last 2 years of the Growers Market, I told you, had gone on to be called the San Jose Produce Terminal. The last 2 years, It was called the San Jose Farmers Market. And that was by Andy Amerian's stepson, Charles Gaganian. He tried to make this into a San Jose Farmers Market. Unfortunately, it wasn't successful with the Growers Market way back when in 1932. And I'm going to read some of them because I think it's interesting, because we probably have a lot of members in our Italian American heritage that actually can trace their roots back to this. So I'm going to start with Iasa, Amerian, Antichi, Armanini, Barsoiula, Basanti, Becchetti, Beccadam, Bellandi, Benassi, Bertolotti, Bacciardi, Bressani, Brunetto, Brueschi, Cancilla, Capelloni, Carli, Carlato, Carmelinghi, Kuzitz, Di Mattei, Del Cero, Della Maggiore, Dementia, Vecchi, Ferrari, Francisconi, Fonsacati, Gallo, Gambucci, Garcia, Guiccieri, Giampoli, Gian Andrea, Gian Bruno, Giovacchini, Grilli, Imwali, Inoue, Kamiko, Kawashima, Kitazawa, Kumagal, Lucchetti, Marianelli, Martini, Matsumura, Manzani, Nizzota, Molinari, Monteforno, Moro, Nicora, Otto, Pala, Panettone, Pasquinelli, Pavoni, Piazza, Peracci, Rosati, Rossi, Savio, Seaton, Shimoto, Silva, Solati, Tayaka, Tassi, Terra, Torello, Toschi, Turini, Uchiyama, Yamaga, Yano, Yoshioka, and Zinola. And as you can see, there's not only Italian Americans, but there's a lot of Japanese Americans who were involved with the early years of the Growers Market as well. And we wanted to make sure that we acknowledged that as well. That was the second largest ethnicity after the Italians, was the Japanese Americans. Okay, so now we will go on to the last picture here. And this is a picture that actually shows the demise of the market. And this was the last picture taken, and it was with John Gaganian. And I told you he was the stepson of Andy Amerian. And he inherited the market at the end. And he actually sold the market in 2001 to a construction company for housing. And unfortunately, the land just became too valuable, as that happens in Silicon Valley, and there wasn't a need anymore for a growers market or a San Jose produce terminal, at least in this area. This produce market represented the best of the Valley of Heart's Delight for over 66 years, long before Silicon Valley. This is an important part of our agricultural history that should be remembered. Accordingly, our long-range goal is to have a permanent marker on the old site of 7th and Taylor Streets. Thank you.